Okay, welcome to This Week in Triathlon. I'm Kevin Tedonio, your host, joined by my co-host this evening, Andres Azoglu. Happy New Year, Andres. How are you?
Hey, Happy New Year to you, man. It's been a little while. Happy New Year to all of our viewers as well.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of shows take their seasonal breaks, and triathlon, because of its seasonal nature in North America, I think it's natural to take a seasonal break. While I think at the last episode you and I signed on, we kind of cheersed a couple Scotch whiskeys together, and I know a lot of our viewers and myself and you, Andres, kind of partook in some nice kind of off-season activities over the holidays. Just kind of got a chance to fatten up a little bit. You, especially on some of your vegan food.
Yeah, well, as you've heard quite a bit, the Vitamix is the greatest thing ever. I probably text you twice a day on what I made on my Vitamix for breakfast and for lunch and for dinner. So you're probably sick of hearing about it, but it is the absolute greatest invention. It is not just a blender. For anybody who says that, I can't call them an asshat because I think that might be trademarked or copyrighted or something since two nights ago. But yeah, it's not a blender.
Well, I think we should do an episode sometime comparing the Vitamix to the Blend Tech, because I did receive a Blend Tech as a wedding present last year, so we could do a little competition.
Yeah, we could do that. Sort of like an Iron Chef type of deal, where we just have a limited amount of time and we make whatever with a secret ingredient.
Yeah. What do you think, Winston? Do you think you'd be down for that? I think Winston's all about it.
Is Christy out of town by chance? I mean, just out of curiosity, just because talking to your dog and putting him on your lap, I got a little bit of a sense that maybe you're lonely for a couple of days.
No, I am. That is true. You are very observant. I'm batching it this weekend. Christy is down in Scottsdale for work this week, and then taking the weekend up in Flagstaff. So just me and my Scotch and Winston.
Well, why don't we start? Obviously, like you said, there's not a heck of a lot to talk about in terms of racing, but there are a couple of bigger races for this time of the year, and one of them is they're both in the southern hemisphere. Chile. There's one in Chile. Where's the other one? I had it written down, and then
it's in Auckland. We got Auckland 70.3 this weekend as well.
Yeah, and at least from Pucon in Chile, I know that's been a popular race for some of the more popular athletes in North America, like Lindsey Corbin, and I think Meredith Kessler have gone down there before, and I think Terenzo Bozzone may have won that race a year or a few years back. But there's some firepower in those races this weekend.
Yeah, it's not a race I really look too much to as like a harbinger of like what's to come throughout the season. If you look back at last year, Luke McKenzie raced that, didn't have a really great race, but ended up at second at Kona. So I think this is a race where some people have maybe a little bit of fitness left over from the season. Maybe some of our athletes from the Southern Hemisphere, from Australia in particular, are going to these races just to kind of check their fitness. Some of them are trying to get some points. But Auckland in particular has an absolutely stacked field. Looking at the race, we got Craig Alexander, Jan Frodeno, and Christian Kemp, I believe, won that race last year. Beat Bevan Doherty. So these are pretty well stacked races for this early in the year.
Yeah, and it's funny because the competition is good, but I think we're still not far removed from Kona, relatively speaking. I mean, we're in the sense that we're still far away from the meat and potatoes of the schedule for 2014. So even though there's a lot of firepower, I don't think we don't see the same sort of build-up, and we don't see the same type of coverage leading up to it. So, it might be one of those races that flies under the radar, even if there's some good names and some actual real good competition on race day.
Yeah, like you said, this is a slow time of the year, but this is a time of the year where a lot of people are starting to really build their base. People really took a look at themselves in the mirror and saw some things they wanted to change. Some people changed coaches. Some people move to different parts of the country, and people are really taking an inventory of what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and people are quietly going about their work. If you look at Angela Ney, she's in Kona doing a big block with her husband Paul, and people are moving to those warmer climates to put in those big blocks of training that are needed for the races that are coming up here in the spring. So before the show came on, you and I were talking about some of the athletes that changed coaches, athletes that changed locations. You want to run our viewers through some of the changes you've seen?
Yeah. So I think the biggest one recently was Matt Dixon lost one of his key athletes in Lindsey Corbin, and who knows? A lot of times these decisions, well, they're presented as mutual decisions. One doesn't know for sure, but that was certainly a surprising move. Lindsey, it seems like she felt that she wasn't performing to her abilities, and whether it was her fault or her coach's fault, she felt it was the time, the right time to move on, and she's going with the QT2 group with Jesse, however you say his last name. I'm not even going to try it, but yeah. From what I understand, he has a very measured approach. Really looks at the measurables, and is also just as diligent about nutrition and recovery as he is about training. So what I mean by that, and what they mean by that is, for them, a rest day is a training day, in a sense, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense.
90% of the time, all the time makes perfect sense. But no, I mean it's something that we as athletes, myself as an amateur, yourself as a professional, it's something that we just, and I'll just speak from personal experience. I don't give too much thought into, but it's a huge. I mean, your gains as an athlete start the moment you stop exercising and start recovering for your next workout.
Yeah, it's true. But taking a step back and looking at kind of the changing of coaches, there are some really high-level coaches that we see in the sport. We see Cliff English, Matt Dixon, Siri Lindley, Brett Sutton. These are big names, and there's the list goes on and on of really good coaches. And I think it's easy for some athletes to kind of take a step back and try to make a move to a coach that kind of can take them to the next level. And I see some athletes, when they kind of reach a certain level, they're looking for something else to kind of get to the next level. So we have a lot of athletes. This is kind of the time of year when a lot of athletes, nobody wants to think about changing a coach, going into Kona. You don't see it that much, but you see a lot of changes around the holidays because it's the off season, and you're thinking a lot, and a lot of those changes happen. Some of those thoughts have been going on for a few months, maybe some of these athletes' head, but we have a lot of coaches like Mary Beth Ellis has switched from Brett Sutton. She's with Siri Lindley, who is a protege of Brett Sutton. We have Leanda Cave, who has left Siri, and we don't know where she's going right now. She hasn't announced that yet. Like you said, we have the change are coming from Lindsey Corbin going to QT2. But it's funny hearing athletes' perspectives talking about different coaches. I've known people who have been with QT2 and have left and had nothing but negative things to say. And then you hear people that are with them now that have nothing but positive things to say. So no matter who these coaches are, I've heard good and bads about all of them. So it's really about which coaching philosophy, which lifestyle works best with that athlete is going to help them achieve their full potential. So I think a lot of the athletes are struggle to kind of find that level. Maybe they've stagnated and are really trying to find the next level, and hopefully they find it. So I wish them the best luck.
Well, I think a common analogy that people use, and you and I don't know that much about it anymore because we're both happily married. But essentially, it's not much different than dating. You have to find a person that is kind of that meets certain levels of expectations, but is also compatible on a number of levels. And sometimes things just don't work out, and you just gotta move on. And like you said, you've heard good things and bad things about every single coach. So I guess people need to take it for what it's worth. And there's cycles. These sort of things go in cycles. And the best coach in the world today may be the worst coach in the world in 2 years. So.
It's funny. It's funny, Andres. I was in Kona this year. You were there, obviously, and I went down to the Specialized booth because Christy told me that Dave Scott was there signing autographs. So I was like, I can't pass up a chance to get an autograph from the man. I mean, it's the man. I want to get his autograph. So we're in line, and I get an autograph from Dave Scott, which is cool. We talked very, very briefly, and we talked about actually some of these things we're talking about now. We're talking about coaches. And we mentioned one name, and he immediately went negative and said, that person doesn't know what they're talking about at all. That person's a terrible coach. And Dave Scott's a coach, and he's never coached an Ironman World Champion. He's been Ironman World Champion, as much as anybody in history, but he's never coached an athlete to an Ironman Championship. And the coach he was talking about had coached multiple Ironman winners. So it's funny to hear that from the man. I mean, so it's not just you and I talking about it. It's kind of even the man has an opinion.
and the man should be careful who he says that kind of stuff with, because it's a small. At the end of the day, it's a small industry, and you're not going to go out and spread these rumors or start mentioning names, but there's people that might, and that's a little surprising that he would mention somebody by name, to be honest with you, because. Unless you've met Dave Scott before, he probably doesn't know you from the next guy in line waiting for an autograph.
I think when you're Dave Scott, you really just don't give a crap what what most people think. I mean, when your build is the man, that's it. That's enough right there.
Yeah. So speaking of athletes, do you have anything else to add in relationship to the coaching carousel? We'll call it. I mean, we're seeing some of the similar things in the world of professional American football. So it's a common thing among sports. But do you have anything to add before I have a little bit of a bone to pick with an athlete you mentioned a little bit earlier?
Yeah, just one thing. It's not just pros. It's also amateurs. I mean, you see amateurs that there are coaches that coach just amateurs, and plenty of amateurs that have coaches, quote unquote. So some switch, as you've seen, on a local level, national level. Some of them do coaching by mail or coaching by email, or techno coaching as it is. But it's not just our pros. It's amateurs do it as well. So, but I'm curious, which athlete did I mention that you have a bone to pick?
Well, you know a little bit about it, just because I was mentioning a little bit before we came on. Is this is becoming a dead horse that's getting beaten over its head real soon. That's what's going to happen. But I'm just really sick and tired of athletes talking about this union and this association of triathletes and professional triathletes, and we need to band together and get organized. I think we've talked about this on the show before, and both you and I are parts of that professional triathletes association, or whatever the name of it is. POTA, don't know what the acronym is, which kind of goes on to show how active they are. But there's absolutely no activity. And this week, Mary Beth Ellis just made a comment that triathlon's really the only sport where you can go from number one in the world to unranked the next year, and that there needs to be some sort of way for that not to be the case, and look at what the PGA does for its players, and it just needs to stop. If people keep talking about it and they keep mentioning the other sports, but talk is really not going to get anything done. It's actions are going to get things done. And
this is triathlon is an individual sport. There are many individual sports that have unions. Don't get me wrong. But triathlon is not unlike, say, ultra distance running, and I don't believe there's an ultra distance running association where an athlete complains about the conditions they have to race in or the money they get to win at the end of a race. Like you said, if you have a problem, the change starts with you, and I do believe there is an opportunity within triathlon and Ironman distance racing to have some type of union or organization, if you will. Proda, to be honest, I've been receiving emails saying it's time to renew my membership with Proda. It's free. Most athletes in the United States tend to sign up with Proda, but to be honest, I haven't seen really any work done by Proda. And not to really stay, this isn't something that the people that work for Proda. You can go to the Proda website and see who actually works for them. I don't want to mention them by name, but these people aren't getting paid, I don't believe, to be a member of Proda, to be working for Proda. There's no membership fees or anything like that, so there's no budget really to work with. So these people are really working with their own time, and they kind of step in to advocate on different bases, but. Like you said, it's really up for athletes. If they don't like a certain situation, like Mary Beth Ellis was really, she wasn't talking about world rankings. She was talking about KPR. She was talking about the Ironman WTC rankings, which are their rankings for getting to their world championships. So that's what Mary Beth Ellis was talking about. And it's funny that the KPR, a lot of people think about that as a ranking. They consider, like, if someone races a bunch, like after Ironman Tahoe in the 2014 rankings, I was ranked like 37th in the world. I don't consider myself to be the 37th best Ironman athlete in the world based off that ranking. It's not arbitrary. It's just over that set specific time frame, how many points do you accumulate? It's not a ranking system.
Well, and I guess the point of it is whether it's a ranking or it's not a ranking, obviously, but it's got to come from doing something and not just talking about it. And the people that have to do something about it are those who are benefiting the most from that system, because if they don't, then nothing's going to change, because they're going to continue to do what they've been doing. And an athlete that doesn't have as much that's not benefiting as much from that system, if they start a movement and they get all the folks that are not really benefiting that much from the system, it's not going to do anything. So it's got to come from those that that are benefiting from the most, and until that happens, nothing's going to change. And it's fine if nothing changes. I don't really care. I mean, the system can remain the same. For my lifetime, I couldn't, care less. I just don't want that to be, pro athletes decide to start tweeting every couple months. There seems to be kind of like a wave of these sort of tweets in this conversation. So just don't do it.
Well, I mean, I think you'd agree that, I've been a man of my word. We've talked about this on numerous occasions, and change really begins with you. And I've made a commitment not to race any WTC brand races, Ironman races in 2014. So far, in the first few days of the year, I haven't raced any WTC races yet, but there's this great new website on race. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called thisweekintry.com. It's actually, it's our new website. And Andres, under the bios for I put up my bio. You put up your bio as well, and I put what's my favorite. What are my favorite triathlon races? And you put in that it was like really any good independent race. And the races I put in there as well for my favorite races were independent races. And I don't think that's really a coincidence. I just feel like there's a very generic experience with like WTC and Ironman races. Having raced, numerous experiences, it just feels like it's kind of like a McDonald's experience, where if I get a cheeseburger at the McDonald's here in Folsom, it's the same as it is in Chicago. And I feel like it is the same with Ironman. I race an Ironman here at Lake Tahoe. It's the same as in Wisconsin. It's like the same experience. So like my favorite triathlons are those unique special races where there's a good community vibe. It's unique. It's not really a replicable race around the world, and it's unique to that area. So.
And I wasn't, unfortunately, I can't list Auburn Triathlon and Roth quite yet, but this year I am signed up for Auburn. I am signed up for Wildflower, and so hopefully hopefully I can have a similar list to you. But you're 100% right. The fact that these are unique, you can't replicate them. The atmosphere. Obviously, the courses tend to be a little bit more extreme in the sense that like Wildflower has some trail running. I believe it's somewhere between 35 and 40% of the half marathon is on dirt. Wildflower, obviously, a very hilly course, and these sort of things tend to be unique to independent races where they have the ability to do those sort of things, or not necessarily the ability, but they have the balls to maybe throw out a little bit more challenging of a course.
So I have a question for you. The winner of the Wildflower Triathlon the last couple of years has been Jesse Thomas, who we tweeted a little bit about today because his bike, his 1974 model Specialized ship was stolen in the Bay Area. Hopefully it's found soon, Jesse. But anyways, he's won Wildflower the last couple of years. What do you think it's going to take for him to do Auburn Triathlon?
If there is someone who would do a triathlon like Auburn, if he doesn't have any conflicts, or if his coaches tell him he can't race, it'd be somebody like Jesse. I think he's I think before moving to Bend, Oregon, I think he was living here somewhere in the city or somewhere in the Bay Area. He ran at Stanford, so I think somebody like that would it wouldn't be as difficult as say a Craig Alexander or a Jordan Rapp.
Well, I think maybe we try to organize something. I mean, he's got a homestay. I live right next to the course. Maybe we can find him a couple of grand to keep him around a couple of weeks between Wildflower and Auburn, and maybe we can make that happen. That'd be a good thing for.
Maybe we can find whoever stole his bike and hold it as ransom and say, Jesse, if you race, you can have your bike back.
All right, we need to start tracking down some meth heads in the Bay and find out which freaking meth addict stole his bike.
It just a little bit about that. I think that somebody knew what they were doing. It's just I find it hard to believe that somebody just happened to come across an open garage and they just saw a bike that thought was cool. I think somebody knew what they were doing.
Interesting.
But, on a lighter note, hopefully people have had a chance to watch the Andrew Starkowicz video he posted on YouTube. I think it was 2 nights ago. Essentially, if you haven't seen it, I don't want to say too much about it because you have to. It's kind of one of those things that you have to see in order to appreciate. But it's kind of like this semi-awkward video of him reading his 10 favorite quotes or paragraphs that people wrote on SoTwitch criticizing him, essentially, is what it was. And it was absolutely great. I mean, the guy's got a hilarious sense of humor. The fact that he can sit in front of a camera and make fun of himself that way, but just the awkwardness of the whole thing just added to the whole parody.
Agreed 100%. So he must have been making use of the ultra cold weather up there in Chicago to hunker down with a video camera to go through that. It was pretty funny.
And then I don't know if you picked up on it, but I don't know if this is like the current fashion or if I'm just I don't know if I'm out of it or. But the pop collar, a lot of people seem to have been mentioning the pop collar as maybe like a fashion do or a fashion don't. What do you think?
I think when it's freaking 20 below zero, you put up any kind of insulation you can around your body. He's the man. He can do anything he wants.
That's what I was just going to say. I was going to say when your name is Andrew Starkowicz, you can pop your collar as many times as you want.
He could have like 3 layers of polos with the pop collar, the pop collars.
Which I don't know if you've seen like I've seen the people that do at least the 2. It's really funny. It looks really weird. You won't see it here. You won't see it on me for sure. I don't know about Kevin, but well, I'm glad we had a chance to catch up and do our first This Week in Triathlon of 2014. I think this is going to be an awesome year for triathlon. I think it's going to be an awesome year for you and I and for This Week in Triathlon in general. Again, the website is thisweekintri.com. And it's a work in progress, but I think we've gotten it to the point where we can at least point people to it. Don't you think?
Yeah. Oh man, I'm bragging about this website. I sent it to my mom to go check out on her iPad. I said, "Mom, look at my new website." So
and I should say you've gotten it up. You've gotten the website up because you figured a lot of the stuff out after I messed up the whole thing.
All right, we won't go into too much of that detail, but if you are interested in, we always invite our viewers to bring up new issues, topics, questions they'd like answered. So go to the contact page. You can put in a request right then and there. Come straight to my email. Come straight to the email of Andreas as well. And we'll address it on the next episode. So, Andreas, until next time.
Kevin, a pleasure, as always.
Thank you.